Welcome to Ink to Gold, a Pages of Possibilities podcast. I'm discussing Steve Black's article, What is Business Journaling?
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to get into this one.
Yeah, me too. Because, I want you, the listener, to just imagine holding a really high stakes problem in your head right now.
Oh, we all have one.
Right, like maybe it's a difficult employee or a cash flow bottleneck or just a vendor who keeps missing deadlines.
Yeah.
Holding that problem in your mind is basically like having 50 resource-heavy tabs open on your browser. Your brain's RAM is completely maxed out, just trying not to forget that those tabs even exist.
It's exhausting. You feel this massive cognitive load. You feel incredibly busy, but you have, zero processing power left to actually solve the issue.
Exactly. So today, we are looking at how to close those tabs. We're translating the core concepts from Steve Black's article into a really practical toolkit for you, whether you're an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, or a business owner.
Because we want to fundamentally change how you process information
Yeah.
and how you make strategic decisions.
Yeah, but to get there, I think we have to start with Steve's foundational definition. Because it kind of, it shatters the usual preconceived notions of what journaling actually entails.
It really does. When people hear the word journaling, they usually picture, documenting what they had for lunch.
Right, like a Dear Diary kind of thing.
Exactly, keeping a chronological log of their Tuesday. But Steve defines business journaling entirely differently.
Which is?
He says, it's what you do when a problem is simply too important to leave inside your head. It's an active thinking tool. So your notebook isn't this passive record. It is the actual arena where your analysis lives.
I love that. A problem too important to leave inside your head. That framing just immediately separates this from casual reflection.
Oh, completely.
And I think it's vital to establish right up front that Steve is drawing on over 40 years of entrepreneurial experience here.
Yeah, that's a huge point.
Like, this is not some theoretical, inspirational fluff about manifesting your business goals to the universe.
No. 40 years of building and scaling businesses really strips away the tolerance for things that just sound nice.
Right. You only keep the habits that actually generate a return on investment.
Exactly. But before we get into the exact mechanics of, what to actually write, we have to clarify what this practice is by drawing a really sharp line between journaling and taking notes.
Because I think the most common trap for business owners is mistaking one for the other.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
As business owners, we are constantly taking notes.
Yeah, we've got legal pads everywhere.
We're typing into digital docs during Zoom calls. We're updating our CRMs. And we feel very productive doing it.
We do, but Steve provides a framework to kind of break that illusion, doesn't he?
He does. He points out that notes are merely storage. Like when you're sitting in a client meeting taking notes, you are just acting as a stenographer for your own business.
Just writing down who said what.
Right. What the deadline is, what the deliverables are. But a journal is active thinking on paper.
So how does that look after the meeting?
Well, when you sit down with your journal after that meeting, you aren't writing down the facts of what happened. You're processing what those facts mean.
Okay.
You're asking things like, what went well during that negotiation? Or what concerns me about their proposed timeline?
Or how does this specific partnership serve our broader quarterly goals?
Yes, exactly.
It makes me think taking notes is like getting a receipt at the grocery store. It just proves a transaction occurred. It's a passive inventory.
I like that analogy.
But business journaling is like sitting down at the end of the month with your budget to analyze whether your spending actually aligns with your financial goals.
Yeah, the receipt just sits in your pocket.
Right. The budget analysis requires you to actively interrogate the data.
And that distinction is where the real value lies. Because Steve notes a very specific danger here. He's observed entrepreneurs who take highly meticulous notes.
The ones with perfect, color-coded Notion boards.
Exactly. They have every single detail of a project captured perfectly in their software. And yet, they learn absolutely nothing from their experiences.
Wow.
They repeat the same strategic errors, the same hiring mistakes,
Right.
because they think the physical act of typing a note is the equivalent of analyzing the event.
Right. So noting captures the event, but journaling extracts the lesson from the event.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Okay, so we are moving from collecting receipts to actively budgeting our thoughts. Let's look at what this actually looks like in practice. Because if I'm committing to doing this, I want to know the exact mechanics of what goes on the page.
Sure. Steve outlines several specific entry types that, really earn their keep over time. And he emphasizes that the format is entirely secondary.
So it doesn't matter if it's bullet points or paragraphs.
Not at all. Bullet points, mind maps,
Yeah.
long form, it doesn't matter. What matters is the honesty of the reflection and just doing it regularly.
Okay, so what's the first method?
The first, and maybe the highest leverage method, is writing through major decisions.
Walk me through the mechanism of that. Let's say I'm about to sign a 5-year commercial lease for a new office space. How do I journal about that rather than just looking at the financials?
Well, you literally divide your thinking on the page. First, you write out the decision you're facing. Then you force yourself to write down your emotional gut feeling about it.
Like, maybe I really want that office just because it's in a prestigious neighborhood and it strokes my ego.
Exactly. Be brutally honest. Then you force yourself to list the raw data supporting move.
Oh, I see.
The page forces you to test your own assumptions. You essentially put your logic on trial.
Because when you look at the written data versus the written emotion, the gap between the two becomes highly visible.
Right. You realize when your reasoning is actually just an emotional preference masquerading as strategy.
You can't hide from it once it's in ink. That's
Mhm.
powerful. What is the next method?
Project postmortems.
Okay.
When a major initiative ends, whether it was a massive win or a complete disaster, you don't just pop champagne or lick your wounds. You have to extract the data.
Give me an example.
Let's say you had a marketing launch that totally exceeded revenue goals, but it required your team to work 80-hour weeks, and 2 people quit.
Yikes. Yeah, that happens a lot.
Right. So a project postmortem forces you to write down, we hit the financial target, but the operational cost was unsustainable. Next time, we need a longer runway.
You capture the core lesson before the memory fades.
Exactly.
And that prevents you from categorizing a toxic success as a blueprint for the future.
That is such a crucial point. Then he talks about weekly planning, but I want to be clear, this is not a to-do list.
Okay, how is it different?
Steve recommends using the journal to identify the single metric or outcome that would make the upcoming week a success. Just one.
Just one thing.
Just one. And once you write that down, you identify the 2 or 3 specific tasks that directly serve that one thing.
Oh man, that is incredibly difficult.
It is.
When I look at my week, I have 50 things that feel urgent. Forcing myself to pick the one thing that matters most is almost painful because it means acknowledging that 49 other things are secondary.
But that's exactly why it works. It forces prioritization. It strips away that illusion that being busy is the same as being effective.
Right.
And you can scale that exact same mechanism up to quarterly reviews.
Okay, so every 90 days.
Yeah, every 90 days, you use the journal to look back. What happened? What was learned? But more importantly, you ask a very specific question. What do the next 90 days demand of me as a leader?
Oh, I like that phrasing. What do the next 90 days demand of me? It shifts the entire perspective. It's not, what do I want to do? It's, what does the business demand of me?
Exactly. It separates your personal desires from the entity's actual requirements. It creates this objective distance.
Are there any entry types for when you're just totally stuck?
Yes, problem-solving entries.
Hmm.
You write the problem clearly at the top of a blank page.
Yeah.
And you just start writing your thoughts about it until something shifts.
It's this stream of consciousness.
Pretty much. You write until you break through the mental block.
Okay.
And finally, he recommends post-meeting reflections. This is just taking 3 minutes after a critical interaction to note what you observed.
Like reading the room after the fact.
Right. Was there hesitation in a client's voice when you mentioned price? Did your co-founder's body language change when a specific topic was brought up?
So you note what you observed and what you would change for the next interaction.
Exactly. Just a quick 3-minute habit.
I see how this applies across different scales of business, but the practical application has to look different depending on who you are, right? Like a startup founder with 50 employees has a very different daily reality than a freelance graphic designer.
Oh, sure. But the beauty of the framework is how it adapts. Steve breaks down how different entrepreneurs utilize these entries.
Let's start with founders.
So founders of scalable companies use this practice primarily to think through high-level strategy, to manage organizational culture, and to track how their own thinking evolves as the company scales from, say, 10 to 50 to 100 employees.
What about the solopreneur? The person wearing every single hat in the business.
For the solopreneur, the journal basically becomes the ultimate accountability partner.
Because they don't have anyone else checking on them.
Right. When you don't have a boss, a board of directors, or even a coworker to bounce ideas off of, it is really easy to drift.
Yeah, you can spend a whole week doing low-impact tasks and no one will tell you to stop.
Exactly. So a solopreneur might use a quarterly review entry and realize, purely by writing it out, that they're spending 80% of their working hours servicing a client who only brings in 20% of their revenue.
Wow. The journal reveals the misallocation of resources.
Yes, and similarly, freelancers and consultants use it to learn from their client relationships.
Mm-hmm.
They use it to identify where they fail to set proper boundaries and how to improve their onboarding workflows.
Okay, I have to pause here and channel the reality of the busy listener.
Go for it.
Because if I am running a scalable company or I am a solopreneur juggling 5 demanding freelance clients,
Mhm.
my reality is pure chaos.
Yeah.
My inbox is on fire, my Slack channels are pinging constantly, my phone is ringing. The visceral anxiety of ignoring all of that noise to sit down with a blank piece of paper and reflect it feels irresponsible.
It feels like you're doing nothing while the house burns down.
Exactly. How do you justify the time?
It is the single most common and honestly most valid objection.
Yeah.
But Steve's rebuttal strikes right at the heart of that anxiety.
What does he say?
He argues that the sheer relentless pace of running a business makes real thinking almost impossible.
Because they're just putting out fires.
Right. You are constantly in a reactive state, playing defense against other people's emergencies.
Mm.
If you wait for a quiet, convenient moment to think deeply about your strategy, you will be waiting forever.
That makes sense.
You have to deliberately, aggressively create the space for it.
So you aren't waiting for the noise to stop. You are building a wall against the noise.
Yes. You do not journal because you have extra time. You journal because you cannot afford to operate your business on reactive autopilot.
Wow.
If you don't carve out 10 minutes to dictate the strategy, the pinging Slack channel will dictate your strategy for you.
So this practice is the designated space where you stop reacting and start directing.
Precisely.
Which means we need to fiercely protect that space. If we are going to endure the anxiety of ignoring our inbox to do this, we cannot waste the time.
And that brings us to Steve's strict boundaries around what this practice is not. To guard this space, you need a clear, not to-do list.
Let's hear it.
First, your business journal is not a to-do list. As we discussed, task management tracks the mechanical execution of your day. A journal explores the strategy behind the execution.
Right. If you sit down and write, email the account, order printering, send the Q3 report, you have just turned your journal into another administrative chore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keep the to-do list in your project management software. Keep the journal for deep thinking.
It's the classic difference between working in the business and working on the business. What is the second boundary?
It is not a project log. Documentation is written so that other people, your employees, your clients, your investors, can read it and know what happened. A business journal is written exclusively for your own growth and your own eyes.
You are not writing for an audience.
Never.
That removes the filter, because if you know someone else might read it, you naturally sanitize your thoughts. You try to make yourself look a little smarter, a little more in control.
Oh, we all do that.
But knowing it is just for you means you can be brutally honest about your failures.
You have to be, or the practice is completely useless.
What's the third boundary?
Third, Steve clarifies that this is not therapy journaling.
Okay, interesting.
He acknowledges that business is deeply personal, so there will naturally be some overlap.
Mm-hmm.
But the primary goal of business journaling is professional clarity and performance optimization. It is not about emotional processing as an end in itself.
This is where the distinction gets incredibly thin, though. Because the final boundary Steve mentions is that the journal should not become a diary of complaints.
Right.
But if I just had a meeting with a client who completely disrespected my team, or a vendor who blatantly lied about a delivery, my immediate impulse is to use that private, unfiltered notebook to rage. I want to vent.
Of course.
So how do we prevent this from devolving into a toxic complaint log where we just wallow in our frustrations?
It requires a very deliberate pivot. Steve's rule is not that you shouldn't write about your frustrations. Suppressing that anger doesn't work. You need to get it out of your head.
Okay.
But the venting must be the starting line, not the finish line. The entry must actively move toward insight and action.
Walk me through that pivot. I write down, this client is completely unreasonable and driving me insane. What happens next?
You don't close the book there. You force yourself to ask the next logical question. You write, why is this client driving me insane? Because they are messaging me at 11:00 p.m.
Okay.
Why are they doing that? Because I answered an 11:00 p.m. email during the first week of the contract. What boundary do I need to establish tomorrow morning to correct my own mistake?
Oh, wow.
You see, you use the frustration as a diagnostic tool to find the operational flaw. You transition from complaining about their behavior to auditing your own systems.
That is brilliant. Okay, so once you strip away the venting, separate out the to-do lists, and stop acting like a stenographer, we are left with the core mechanism of this practice.
The real engine of it.
Yeah. Let's look under the hood. Why is the physical act of putting a pen to paper so much more effective than just sitting in a quiet room, closing your eyes, and thinking really hard about your business?
It comes down to cognitive offloading and the biological reality of how our brains process information. When complex thoughts are left inside your head, they tend to loop.
Like a broken record.
Exactly. The same anxieties and unexamined assumptions circle around and around. Your brain is highly efficient at tricking you into feeling like you are doing productive problem solving, when in reality, you're just spinning your wheels on the same vague fears.
That goes back to the browser tabs analogy. Your working memory can only hold about 4 to 7 pieces of information at a time.
Yeah, it's remarkably limited.
So if you have a business problem with 15 different variables, financials, personnel, market timing, personal risk, your brain simply cannot hold all of those variables at once to analyze them. It drops one to pick up another.
Yes, but the paper holds the variables for you. It acts as an external hard drive, freeing up your cognitive RAM to actually analyze the data instead of just trying to remember it.
You know, thinking in your head is like running on a treadmill. You feel like you're doing a lot of work, but you aren't getting anywhere.
That's a great way to put it.
Writing it down is like building a staircase. The page demands specificity and completion that the mind happily skips.
That externalization changes the nature of the thought itself. Because inside your head, a thought can remain vague and undefined. It can just be this, feeling of dread about a specific project.
Right.
But on paper, you are forced to abide by the rules of language. You have to find a subject. You have to find a verb. You have to complete the sentence.
And forcing an abstract anxiety into a concrete sentence strips away the emotional fog.
Exactly. You literally cannot write a vague, looping feeling. You have to articulate it.
And I imagine that articulation often reveals that the monster in the closet is much smaller than it felt in the dark.
Exactly. What felt like an absolute, overwhelming certainty inside your head often looks entirely manageable or even slightly ridiculous when you are forced to articulate it clearly on paper.
A massive problem gets broken down into written, addressable components.
And doing this consistently leads to what Steve calls the ultimate long-term return on investment of the practice.
The 6-month payoff.
The 6-month payoff.
Business owners are ruthless about ROI. If someone commits to doing this, if they endure the anxiety of ignoring their inbox to sit with a blank page, what is the compounding return over time? Does this actually hit the bottom line, or are we just getting a clearer head?
It hits the bottom line by dramatically improving your decision-making algorithm.
Yeah.
If you use these methods consistently for 6 to 12 months, you create something you literally cannot purchase at any price.
Which is?
A written, searchable record of how you actually think.
Wow.
As you review your past entries, invisible patterns will begin to emerge. You will see the specific conditions and characteristics that your most profitable, successful decisions share.
And conversely, you will see the warning signs you consistently ignore.
Yes.
Like you might notice that every time you hire someone based on a gut feeling rather than a skills test, it ends in a firing 6 months later.
Exactly.
Or every time you take on a client who asks for a discount up front, they end up being a scope creep nightmare.
Right. You are building a custom knowledge base for your own business, authored by you, based entirely on your own real-world data.
Because most entrepreneurs operate purely on memory, right? And human memory is notoriously flawed.
Oh, terribly flawed. We revise history to make ourselves look better. We forget the red flags we ignored. Thinking leaves no trace, but journaling leaves a map.
A custom map of your own cognitive biases, your blind spots, and your unrecognized strengths. You can look back and see the actual evolution of your strategic mind.
Which leads to a critical question. Think about the most successful and prolific leaders in history.
Okay.
Marcus Aurelius, Thomas Edison, the great strategists. We revere their public works, their speeches, their inventions. But ask yourself, was it their polished public output that made them great?
Or was it the private, messy, entirely unpublished journals they kept just for themselves that actually forged their genius?
Exactly. What hidden patterns of self-sabotage or brilliant strategic connections are you currently missing simply because you aren't leaving a trail for yourself to follow?
That is an amazing thought to end on, to help you start living that trail. Here is a specific, actionable prompt straight from Steve's article that you can use today. What is the decision or problem in your business right now that needs more than 5 minutes of thinking? That's the practice. Try it this week and see what happens. Subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop, and visit pagethepossibilities.com for more journaling practices designed for entrepreneurs. Link to the full article is in the description.